Is it okay if I have the slide up or you want me to take it down? No, for now, that's good. Right.
Awesome. Welcome everybody. Um, Good morning. Welcome to today's Topic Tuesday webinar featuring University Counseling Services. My name is Seth Kohlheiser and I work as a graduate assistant within orientation services at the University of Iowa. Our webinar series features presentations by many different campus offices throughout the summer, and you can see all of our webinars available and register for them on Orientation Services website. We will be utilizing the live Q&A feature during this presentation. So if you have a question, please type it into the Q&A chat function and our team will work to answer questions through the chat. There will also be an opportunity at the end of the presentation where we can have our presenter answer questions live. If you want to access this material after today's presentation, you can find the link to our YouTube page on Orientation Services website, which is newstudents.uiowa.edu. At this time, I would like to introduce the office I would like to introduce University Counseling Services.
All right, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Tianyi Xie, and I am one of the associate directors at University Counseling Service. I oversee all the outreach and prevention services at our agency. And today we're going to talk to you a little bit more about how to support your students in college. And in today's presentation, we're going to talk a little bit more about addressing the changes in the parent-student relationship and how you can support this transition for your students and yourself, and how to launch a resilient college student. And lastly, we can talk a little bit more about our services that's available for students. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about this change that happens within your dynamic when students leave home for college. And a lot of times when a student start college, they may become more independent in some ways. Like, you know, they will be the one making their own schedules, figure out their meals, like making friends and things like that. But they're still dependent upon you in some other ways, especially, you know, when there are major decisions involved. They may consult you when they choose a major, when they have interpersonal conflict with friends or advisor, they're likely to still come to you for support. So there is a sort of a new dynamic and a new phase of the relationship where you will see a little bit shift when it comes to independence and interdependence. And for a lot of families, your students will be leaving home for college, so they will necessarily they will inherently be a change in communication. You may rely heavily on text messaging, FaceTime, phone calls for communication. You may not be able to have those, you know, little check-ins when you come home or when students come home every day. So we always encourage people to be a little bit more intentional about, you know, have this discussion about how and how frequent and when you want to check in with the students. Make sure that students is on board with that and have some sort of routine with communication. And for a lot of parents, especially your student may be the only child or the youngest child, you may face with some emptiness syndrome. When you don't have your students around, it can be really challenging. You may experience loneliness, stress, or boredom at home. So you may need to figure out a new rhythm or routine for yourself as well. And for a lot of students, especially when it comes to the kind of emergent independence, you really want to foster that personal responsibilities within your student, encourage them to manage some things on their own, and really allow room for trial and error, and let them know that it is okay to try things out, and even if it fails, that's okay. That's a learning experience. Kind of normalize that. And you want to build confidence and independence, really encourage them to manage things themselves by themselves, while still kind of provide necessary support, either kind of walk them through how to do certain things, how to make a medical appointment, or kind of hold their hands sometimes, especially when they're trying to do something that can be challenging or difficult for them. And next thing that often happens is like for students, they will encounter problems in their life and in college. And you really want to foster that problem solving skills in your student. You don't want to solve the problem for them. Don't step in. Really encourage them to kind of try it out themselves. And remember to express confidence in their ability, while still provide that necessary support and guide. And think about, or guide them to think about who around them can be helpful. We have a wide range of services and agencies on campus that's in service of student success. So think about help them to think about what are some offices that they may call, or are there trusted peers or advisors or professors that they can go to ask questions and get support. You also want to think about when you want to intervene, when you feel like, maybe the students just haven't been responding to phone calls or texts, and you really get worried. Maybe this is a good time to, intervene and really ask about what's been going on. Or when you notice a really noticeable behavioral change, probably a good idea to kind of check in with them and see what's been going on. So kind of think about where you want to set that threshold for yourself and for your family. And as mentioned, communication is really, really important. You really want to have that conversation before your students leave for college, and want to reach agreement on the communication. And that will include how often do you communicate, in what format, what time, what date. For some families, that may come really naturally, like they will just naturally form a routine. But for some other family, it may take a little bit of time to kind of establish that norm. There's no right or wrong here. It's just like different family preferences, family style may inform this process. So really just think about what works for you all. Another thing that we always encourage people to think about is GPS location sharing. Do you want to still have it, or does the student feel comfortable to still share GPS location with you? Or maybe it can be done when students are, going out at night. Maybe that's a safety concern versus, in their daily life that they may not want their parent to know that, they're hanging out with friends or going to classes, things like that. So think about how you want to navigate that and have a conversation about it. And encourage communication of vulnerability and help seeking. It is really important to, even when you have a concern with students' performance and where they are, you really want to lead with curiosity and have a lot of empathy and compassion for them, trying to understand where they're coming from, the struggles they have, rather than go in with, rhetorical questions or criticisms. So all of that will help to foster a better communication between you and your student, and foster that vulnerability and help seeking when they actually need support. And you also want to take care of you. It's really normal to have mixed emotions. It's a very common experience for parents to have some conflicting emotion. You may feel really happy that your student is in college, but then you may also feel sad for not having them around, and that's totally normal. And you want to think about how you want to handle this transition and what you can do to support yourself and your student. And think about what is within your control versus not. A common thing is maybe you feel strongly that your student need to utilize a service, but your students are not willing to. So what is within your control here? You may not really have full control with what your student do because they are now adult. And so think about how you want to navigate situations like that. And lastly is really encourage and model self-care. Students definitely learn from their parents. So how do you take care of yourself? Really sends a message about how you may want your student to take care of themselves or, balance things. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to launch a resilient college student and what you can do to support that. One really important thing about resilient is like finding the community on campus is particularly important for college students. How do you help them to establish that connection with peers and advisors or professors? Here, just a list of different, places that you can encourage students to look into to find that connection. For a lot of students who are leaving home for college, this may be their first time actually trying to find a new friend network ever since middle school or elementary school because they have been in the same area with the same cohort for a really long time. So people will naturally feel anxiety about it. So normalize that, encourage them to kind of venture out is really important. And also want to really think about how you talk about setbacks and the mistakes and failures. We'll encourage parents to see mistakes as expected and also convey that message to the students and really help students to be okay with alternative plans, even if they did not get into the major they want or get a grade they want, that there are other things they can do to kind of bring up their GPA or to supplement their experience. And really help students to look for alternative options and to utilize the services on campus and to roll with the unexpected. And here are some sample questions you can ask your students when they feel frustrated by setbacks or feel challenged by some ways. Ask questions like, what has been hard? What are the biggest challenges? To really normalize the imperfection and give permission to struggle. And you also want to ask questions like, what resource exists for you to get help with this? So help prompt them to brainstorm the resources that they can utilize before you offer a solution or resource. So that's another way to foster that independence. And you can also ask, what's keeping you from utilizing them, or what are some barriers that you foresee for you to utilizing them? So this is not a rhetorical question. You want to ask it in a curious way to really understand why it can be challenging and help them to identify the barrier and help them to problem solve a way to overcome it. A lot of times, for students especially feel hesitant to reach out or utilize services or feel really nervous about it. It is really easy to sort of feel like, you just need to go do it. But comments like that may not always be helpful. You really want to understand, well, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of people's judgment, perception? Or are you afraid of how that would say, does it mean that, what would that say about you as a person? Are you afraid that you will be perceived as weak? So really get into that fear they hold and provide validation and encouragement. All right, lastly, want to talk a little bit more about our services as University Counseling Service. We are one of the primary counseling centers for students on campus. Before we talk about the services, I do want to do a little bit true and false mental health myths with you all. I don't know if you can type in chat. I think you can. So first question, you can type forward truths or T or F in the chat if you like. Asking someone who's demonstrating psychological stress, are you thinking about suicide is a bad idea as it can increase the likelihood that they will seriously consider suicide. Is that true or false? Can Oh, actually, you cannot put in chat. Maybe just have the answer in your mind. That works too. Okay, I'm seeing some people say false to QA section. And yes, you are correct. That is false. Asking that direct questions decrease the likelihood, and it's one of the best interventions that you can take, because it actually opens the door for people to talk about suicide. Because there's usually a lot of shame and guilt associated with suicidal thoughts. So asking directly will make people feel relieved to know that they can talk about it. All right, next question. If you seek therapy at University Counseling Service, your mental health record will be part of your academic record. Is that true or false? Feel free to I'm seeing false. Yes. Thank you for typing in the answer in the QA. All of you are right. It is false. Mental health records are kept separately and it's distinct from academic records. It is confidential and no one outside of students can access those records. All right. So there are also, trying to see if there are importance I want to talk about this. If there are key people in student life who the student wants to be involved in their care, we are also happy to offer collaborative care by having students sign a release of information for each person they wish to be involved in their care. It doesn't happen all the time, but it definitely happens, like individually due to students' preference and needs. All right, last question. UCS brief therapy model will not provide enough therapy service for my student. True or false? And also I should also provide that information that a lot of our individual counseling are brief in nature. It is typically on average 3 to 8 sessions. We don't have a specific session limit. Usually our treatment is goal-oriented and the student will establish that goal with our therapist in the first session, and then we will periodically check in if their goal has been reached. If the student needs go beyond brief individual counseling, we will often talk to students about something a little bit more long-term, either refer them to an off-campus therapist or would refer them to our group therapy, which is long-term. Yeah. So a lot of students, yes, I see the answers in the QA. One of you said that probably depends on the specific situation. That's very true. So that's why in our initial contact, we go through the options with students and to help them think through that. Well, is your concerns workable within a brief model or something more long-term will be helpful. And our data shows that people who go through brief therapy often have pretty positive outcomes. Even if, a lot of times you may not able to, your whole concern can be resolved, but they're at a place where they feel good about the process and feel ready for the next phase of treatment. All right, a little bit overview about us. Again, we are a free confidential service and we're open to undergrad, grad students, professional students, and postdoc scholars. And we have a multidisciplinary professional staff. So our team consists of psychologists, social workers, licensed mental health counselors, and therapists in training. We don't have psychiatrists in-house. So if you're a student interested in psychiatric medication, they can make psychiatric appointment at Student Health. They do have complimentary appointment with us, meaning that we can do care coordination with them, but we don't have them in-house. And there are three key service area at UCS. One's the clinical service. So those will be the counseling service that we offer and the case management service we offer. And then we have outreach and prevention services that consist of prevention programs. And then we have training team for doctoral level and master level trainees who are trained to be therapists. So usually, students need to be in the state of Iowa to utilize our clinical and counseling services. And we ask people to complete paperwork prior to appointment, and we have virtual and in-person options. And we often have same day and event scheduling for first appointment. We ask people to use this number to call and schedule same day appointment, and advanced scheduling sometimes can be available online. And we offer same day problem solving appointment that's called quick access. And we already talked about the brief individual counseling and group counseling. And our case management service is really to help students connect them with someone off campus, and especially if a student want more long-term service or have more specialized needs. And for our outreach and prevention services, we have support groups that focus on connection and relationship building. And we also have skill-based workshops to address motivation, anxiety. We also have a Let's Talk program that can think about like micro interventions to learn a small skill to cope with stress, and have opportunities to chat with therapists for a brief conversation and to do some problem solving. And students organization department can also request a workshop from us. And as I mentioned, now we provide training to graduate students from different disciplines on campus, and they're supervised by a licensed clinician and really help us to build our service capacity so students can receive service sooner. And I also want to just provide information of urgent crisis or time-sensitive emotion support. Our operation hour is 8 to 5 from Monday to Friday. So if students need support in the evenings or the weekend, we highly encourage them to use the UI supported crisis line. This is something that we contract with the local crisis agency, and student can get emotional support 24/7. And student can also utilize the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline 988. It's a good number to save in your student's phone. They can also access support 24/7. All right, so this QR code is our scheduling page. So if you're interested, you can scan this QR code to learn more about our services. In the meanwhile, if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, either share that in the chat or put it in the QA. What are the three key services at UCS? So three key services areas are the clinical and the counseling services. So that would be individual, group, referral specialist, or case management. And then the second key area will be outreach and prevention services. So those will be the group therapy, oh, no, not group therapy, support groups, workshops, and the prevention programs. And and then the third area of service is training. So it's more catered to like therapists in training, but they help to build our capacity. So where may students learn about ADHD support group? So it will be on our website, and when you go to the main menu and look through the outreach section, there are workshop and support groups, and you can often find that information there. It's not updated to the fall semester yet because we are still kind of figuring our fall semester schedule. But it's a good idea to like help your student to think about here a service that they can potentially utilize. We will have that information available at the beginning of fall semester. And a lot of our support groups are drop-in friendly, so students doesn't need to go there like every week, but they can if they choose to. It's typically virtual. Yeah. Is there a specific group for anxiety? Great question. So a lot of our group therapy are interpersonal process group. So people with anxiety are definitely a good fit for those groups. We see group therapy as a kind of laboratory for people to learn different ways to engage with themselves and others. So that will be, so a general group or, men's group or women's group could be a potentially good option for students with anxiety. We also have workshops for students to learn skills about anxiety. We are creating a workshop that specifically helps students managing anxious thoughts, and that will be another way to learn anxiety management skills. Yeah, I think those two will be good options. And we will have both the group manual and the workshop manual updated the first couple of weeks of the fall semester. Right now, we're still in the program development phase. That's what we typically do in summer. Other questions? Oh, one thing I do want to just bring up, because those are questions we got asked pretty often. If your student already have a therapist at home, and then you're thinking about, how to get them established support here, there are a couple of different options. If you feel like, what the student needs is a little bit support through the transition, a brief round of therapy makes sense. Our individual service will be a great option. Or if you feel like what they need is something a bit more long-term and someone who can support them throughout their academic semesters here, you can help them, or they can make a case management appointment with us. Our case manager can have access to information about local providers, and they can help the student connect with one of them and establish support that way. So those off-campus therapists will be able to see clients for more on their own. Are the individual appointments free of charge, or do they go on their insurance? So all of our services are free. So our funding are through the mental health fee students pay. So if students want to find more long-term support, long-term individual support through individual therapist off campus, then that's when they will need to use insurance for that. Our center also have long-term options, but that's through group therapy. So students can potentially get long-term support in group therapy. They can stay in group therapy for like multiple semesters if you like. Another question, what type of service do the student housing and embedded therapist provide? Great question. Yes, we have 5 embedded officers. One at law, one at business, TIPI Business College of Business, 2 therapists at housing and dining, and 1 for veteran and military students, and there's also 1 for students dentistry. So all of the embedded therapists provide similar services as the main office, other than calling us to schedule an appointment to initiate the service with our staff at main and embedded office. A lot of times students who are eligible to see those embedded therapists can make that appointment directly with their embedded therapist via emails. That's another way. And the service they provide may vary a little bit in embedded locations because their service is more tailored to their community and to the unit. So there are some variation in that, but typically for therapists working at housing and dining, they also have brief individual counseling, have initial appointments, have those quick access problem solving sessions. They also provide workshops. So in general, it's still the same. How do you explain to a student that failure is normal and to be expected if they're anxious that failure means they can't get scholarships, etc.? Great question. There's a lot at stake. I understand myself that failure and struggles are expected. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. I think one thing to think about is what I like to talk to students is a lot of times fear and anxiety is one side of the coin. And when you really care about something, you are naturally feel more anxious about something. So the other side of the coin is you really care about education and you really have strong drive for your future. So hold both sides of that coin. And when you feel really anxious about failure, also keep in mind, tap into that more positive side to think about why you want to learn this and how like the drive you have for the future, the aspirations that you have. And that often will help, to normalize that a little bit. And you can also use your own example, like when you care about something, maybe a job opportunity that you have, you naturally feel more anxious about it. Can also explore with students that, does anxiety actually help you to perform? Does it, like, when you feel really, really anxious, can you actually focus on things? So that will sort of more tap into the skill part of anxiety management. If you feel like, your students is really, really anxious about failing exams to the point that they cannot focus in class, they cannot perform well in the exam due to the anxiety, it's probably a good indicator that they should come talk to us. Either, dropping one of our workshops to work through that anxiety, or make an appointment with us and work more like individually to talk about the fear that's there and the skills to cope with that anxiety. Other questions? You are very welcome. maybe that's all of the questions.
Yeah, I think it doesn't look like anything else has come into the Q&A. But thank you for your presentation. Um, as a reminder, this content can be accessed on Orientation Services YouTube page, which can be found through our website, newstudents.uiowa.edu. And that's also linked in the chat as well. Thank you all for taking the time to attend today's Topic Tuesday webinar, featuring University Counseling Services. Following the conclusion of today's Topic Tuesday series, our next Tuesday webinar series will be on June 25th, and the theme is Student Support Resources. You can learn more about the series and register for webinars on our website. Hope to see you all then, and go Hawks!